What up, fellow nerds, and welcome to Not Your Status Quo. I'm Dave, and today we'll be breaking down The Mandalorian, Chapter 9, The Marshal.
And if you fellow Mandalorian fans like what we do and you want to see more of our videos, make sure you hit that subscribe button and hit the like button too.
And I'm Keith. Don't forget to share this with all of your friends. That is the way of the Force. And ring that bell to be notified of all of our future videos.
Here we go.
So, Season 2 now starts in an unknown planet to us. I don't think it was ever shown on the credits. But we start with the Mandalorian walking down this dark road with, of course, the child in tow. He goes into a club and he meets Gor Koresh. And in an earlier video, I had said that this part was played by Jon Favreau, and I was wrong. This is John Leguizamo. And I guess he just likes dressing in, like in Spawn, like really short supervillain type roles. I don't know, kind of funny. But when there's a scene after the opening scene where they watch the two fight, that Gor Koresh says, as Mando has hung him up from the street light, and he's interrogating him, Mando asks him a question, and Gor says, "I swear to the Gotra to have Mando believe that's true." Well, in Star Wars canon, the droid Gotra was a group that fought for droid rights, and they've been mentioned in several Star Wars books. It's not a religion or a god, so I'm not really sure what they meant by him swearing by the Gotra.
Yeah, so I picked up on that too. And if you take a look, actually, in the very beginning of that episode, when Din is walking down the road, did you notice all the graffiti that was like painted on all the walls and everything? To me, that looked like a bunch of either stormtroopers or droids or something like that. And I think that must have been something that was like a big deal on this planet, whatever it was. And it could be maybe a nod to the novels, but it could also be a nod to what happened in Solo, if you remember the droid uprising that happened in that movie as well. So to me, that's what I was thinking that they're referring to, is this must have been another one of the planets where that occurred. Just my thoughts on it. I wasn't entirely sure why he swore to it, other than maybe that's just the closest thing to a deity or a god that they could swear.
And to me, this episode, much like the rest of the show, has a very Western feel. Like, walking into sunsets and spurs jangling when they walk. There's a lot of saloon entrances by Mando, and of course by Cobb Vanth. And it's like a showdown with a local sheriff. The way he rides his speeder bike when they go to Mos Pelgo, when he gets into town and all the townsfolk are looking at him. And it's very, very spaghetti Western, if you ask me.
And I don't know if the rest of you fellow nerds caught this, but Cobb Vanth was using Anakin Skywalker's pod racer as his little cycle. I thought it was a really cool nod to the prequels, the pod racing, and that's what Favreau and Filoni do so well. They bring in little parts from all the other movies and books. Cobb Vanth was from the Aftermath novels. I thought they brought him into the story very organically. He's riding Anakin's pod racer. Just so many things they bring in the Star Wars universe, bringing it all together and making it work, which, as we know, can be hard for other directors and writers.
And another thing I liked about this, the West feel, when Mando gets into town and he speaks to the natives, if you will, the Sand people, and he finds out that they have the same problem as the townsfolk. And look at him; he brings everybody together to solve a common problem, and they make a deal that not to attack. He's making peace out there in the Tatooine desert. Good for him.
Dave, and I picked up that on that also. He's doing his best. He's always bringing people together, solving problems, very leader-esque. And the whole time, as I'm seeing him bring the Tusken Raiders and these townspeople together to fight a common cause, I kept thinking, wow, if he does end up taking down Moff Gideon and getting that darksaber, is he going to be in line to rule the Mandalorians? Is he going to bring about the next wave of Mandalorian greatness by leading them with the darksaber?
Yeah, I was actually thinking the same thing. He does show a lot of leadership qualities, and this isn't the first time that he's done that. We've already seen that he's, very much about the way. He's very much about the life of a Mandalorian. He's mentioned it, multiple times, like when he was dealing with the Jawas. When he was, trying to get the pieces back to his ship, he made it very clear that weapons are part of his religion. So yeah, I totally think that if he continues down this path of being able to travel from planet to planet and help out all these different cultures and everything and expand his sort of leadership ability now that he is the head of his own clan, I really think that he could end up being a recognizable, family of the Mandalorians, and he might end up becoming part of the ruling class. Yeah, for sure. Assuming that they're actually able to regain control of Mandalore.
Another Easter egg that's in this show is the R5D4 droid that had a bad motivator from New Hope. We find out it's working in Peli Model's garage, for lack of a better term. I don't know what to call it, a space dock, or I don't know what they call it. Maybe one of you guys can help me. But we know that this is the same R5 unit because it still has the damaged motivator, and it's shown in the scene. And also, Dave Filoni did mention this on the Disney behind the scenes show. So
yeah, I really like that. So this isn't the first time that they've done something like that in this series in The Mandalorian. So they've mentioned in that show that you're talking about, Dave, that sort of behind the scenes breakdown of The Mandalorian. Yeah, they mentioned that basically the way that they go about setting up a lot of these episodes is they're like the little brother. They're working with the leftover toys. They've got the old Boba Fett character that they painted silver and they've made it their own character, or they've got the random dude running away with the ice cream maker from from Lando's planet. So they've got like all these leftover toys, or the what was the creature, the blurg. They've got a couple of extra spare blurgs, and so they're they're playing around with these leftover toys, but they're making their own awesome story with what they have left over. And so they've got this R5 unit with a bad motivator, and I absolutely love. And we'll put a clip up here if we can find it. But yeah, I love the fact that they actually mention in this sort of behind the scenes episode that the way they imagine it is that this R5 unit, or I'm sorry, is R4, whatever. Anyway, that this
I don't think he ever got off Tatooine. I think
so. I love the way that they mention that this R5 unit has never even left the planet because he had this bad motivator, and that it was like a ripoff, from when Luke and his uncle were trying to buy it and everything. And so he's just been chilling on Tatooine for the entirety of this whole war. So 2 Death Stars have exploded, the Empire is in ruins, and here's this R5 unit still just kind of chilling out. I think that's great.
And I still have the R5 little Kenner toy from the 70s. So that's pretty cool. I wonder if that went up in value at all with that. Anyway, I thought Tim Oliphant was excellent as Cobb Vanth, but I can't help to think that it would have been hilarious to see Fred Ward in this role, because this to me was this episode had a very Western feel, but it was kind of also an homage to, if you will, to Tremors with Kevin Bacon and Fred Ward, and to have them repeat some of the lines would have been hilarious. But I'm sure there was more in store for this character. So Timothy Oliphant was an excellent choice. I thought he did great. And when they left at the end, when he said, "I hope our paths crossed again," and Mando said, "As do I think that's a little foreshadowing. He will be involved in whatever happens at the end of the road, I think.
I actually am glad that you brought that up, because I kind of was seeing that too. I thought that it was very similar. It gave me some Tremors vibes, but it also gave me with the whole the dragon, coming out of the sand and moving around. It gave me some sandworm vibes from Dune. That was like my initial thought at first, like after I was like, oh, you know what? That kind of reminds me of that. And so I got to looking online and seeing, okay, is anybody else speculating about this? Is anybody else talking about that? And I actually came across something that I actually didn't know about Star Wars lore, that I had it had never occurred to me before. But the idea of the Kessel Run, and the spice mines, apparently that was based off of Dune. I had no idea that there was that connection, so I thought that was kind of neat. I don't know if the idea of this sand dragon was a callback to, maybe it could have been both, mix of Tremors and Dune. I'm not entirely sure if both were a part of it or not.
Doug, that's a very good point. And, the krayt dragon has been in other things. It was in Knights of the Old Republic, the first video game. You actually had to go and not only kill the dragon, but actually get that pearl that the Tusken Raiders found at the end when they were cutting all the meat out. So I thought that was, once again, another nice callback. They didn't overdo it.
And the krayt dragons have been around in Star Wars lore since the beginning. If you remember, I guess not in the 1977 version, but the updated versions, when C-3PO and R-D2 land on Tatooine for the first time as they're walking across the desert, there is a skeleton of a krayt dragon just lying in the desert.
So something else, and we actually mentioned this in our previous one of our trailer reviews, or it could have been our, I don't know, something. We've done a lot of stuff on the Mandalorians. You should watch all of our videos either way. But one of our videos, we actually discussed in some of the initial shots and some of the previews that they were showing the banthas, and it was the first time that we actually got to see one of their faces. So I just wanted to kind of like bring that back up again, since Dave actually mentioned, some of the items that we see from some of the other, Star Wars media, maybe later on revisions of the movie. We end up seeing in the same opening shots where we see the bones of the krayt dragon, we actually see a lot of banthas walking around on Tatooine, and finally we get to see what their faces look like. And I don't know if this was a practical effect this time around, but I do know that in the original movie, when you saw Bantha, it was actually literally an elephant that they had put like a bunch of fur and stuff on. So again, it would be cool if they had still stuck with some sort of practical effect, like maybe build a giant puppet or something. I'll have to look into that. But either way, it looked really cool and it was awesome to see.
And I don't know if you guys noticed this, but there was at one point where you saw a Tusken Raider kind of brushing the teeth of a bantha, which, it could be a practical effect, could be CGI. I just think that The Mandalorian has done more for Tusken Raiders than any other show in history. Before, they were just attacking local villagers on Tatooine or to be slaughtered by, rogue Jedis. We've come to know more about, how they, travel in packs and how they have this hierarchy. They're willing to work with people and they're good on their word, if you believe what Mando, was telling Cobb Vanth. Hey, if they say they're going to do it, they're going to do it. And I just think it was kind of nice. They've taken a group of people who are just kind of side players to be killed off, or have Obi-Wan do the krayt dragon scream to scare him off, into something much more. And it's seamless into the story. It's just so well done.
So I wondered, going back to our initial thoughts about how Din might end up becoming the leader of the Mandalorians or something like that, how interesting would it be, since we know that Mandalorians can be from any culture or anything? What if, because of his closeness obviously with the Tusken Raiders, what if he introduced the first Tusken Mandalorian?
That's pretty interesting, Doug. I mean, seriously, I hadn't thought of that. But at the end, we were talking about the Sand People finding a pearl in the krayt dragon's carcass. These are very valuable in the Star Wars universe. They're worth about 100,000 credits each. In fact, a little bit of history. Han Solo used the krayt dragon pearl to buy his way into the game of Sabacc, where he won the Millennium Falcon from Lando. And we were talking about Cobb Vanth earlier. When the deal is made to return the Mandalorian armor to Mando, he states, when he gets it back after they take care of business, you tell your people that I wasn't the one who broke that. Obviously, this is a reference to the big reveal that is Boba Fett.
Yeah, so I was wondering about that. Like, I wonder if that's sort of like a tongue-in-cheek reference to the fact that obviously, Boba Fett, as we know, this is canon, that he was digested and then pooped out the other end of the planet Tatooine, as we have stated many times before. So obviously, going through the digestive tract of a giant planet-sized monster would cause damage to the armor. Or, if it's just damage from anything that maybe the Jawas might have done to it.
And now, we don't get a fantastic look at what Fett is wearing, and we're assuming it's Fett. We don't know this for sure, but it seems to have a cape robe from behind that looks rather frayed, and that fits what Tusken garb really looks like. And if you look at it closely, what if just they're repurposing the Al-Sharad Het story for Fett? What if they found him nude near death in the Dune Sea? His armor stripped by Jawas. If anyone found him there, it probably would have been Tusken Raiders. What if Fett has come to live among them, wanting to stay hidden due possibly to humiliation, or hence why he didn't go after Cobb for his armor, or he didn't know where the armor was at the time until he's working, with Cobb and the villagers to help take down the krayt dragon. Perhaps even came to be so accepted, he grows into a leader of the tribe. Perhaps that's why the Tusken Raiders were even more cooperative this time around. Perhaps that's why they were more welcoming at Mando. And get this, El-Sharad Het eventually fell to the dark side and was titled Darth Krayt. And what does that mean? And what, of course, does this episode deal with? That's right, folks, a krayt dragon.
I did not know that. That's actually really interesting. That's kind of cool. Now, is that from Legends, or is that canon lore?
Yeah, it's Legends. And I think that's why they might be repurposing it, because it's no longer canon. So they can kind of take the good parts of the story and meld it into their own and make, whatever's going to become of Boba Fett, much more interesting story and arc.
So, okay, I wouldn't completely discount anything from Legends yet. So we actually talked about this in our trailer breakdown, I'm sorry. We talked about this in our This Is a Way video about the history of the Mandalorian. So they've been slowly picking little pieces, like sort of cherry picking here and there, little pieces from Legends and sort of rolling it back into Star Wars lore, kind of deciding, okay, we like this, we like that. And that's why some people are now starting to bring up, okay, so is Boba Fett now going to be a disgraced Mandalorian again? Like, there's been a couple of discussions online talking about how, maybe when Obi-Wan was discussing it with, the leader of the Mandalorians at the time, maybe because he was corrupt and, trying to poison children or whatever, maybe he's not the most trustworthy person, and maybe they're going to roll that back in from lore or something, or I don't know. There's a lot of different ways that this can go. There's a lot of different things that Dave Filoni and that the crew can actually do with the writing, because they've got so many side characters and so many, leftover toys to play with, that who knows what they'll end up doing with the story.
Yeah, Doug, you're absolutely right. Just with the amount of characters that have been speculated that are going to show up in this season. I mean, I think we finally got confirmation that Rosario Dawson is playing Ahsoka. We know that Sasha Banks is playing someone. Is it Sabine Wren? We know Bo-Katan is showing up. There's been rumors Rex is going to show up. We've seen what could be Boba Fett. I mean, there's so much they're bringing in and so many different characters and so many different things. And we know they do like to repurpose Legends sometimes, like the whole Grand Admiral Thrawn, who was part of the Timothy Zahn trilogy of novels, which was fantastic, by the way. If you haven't read them, go read them. It's Legends, but it's still really well done. All of a sudden, Grand Admiral Thrawn shows up on Rebels. So Filoni and Star Wars loves to do that. Hey, what's a great character? Let's bring them in and let's use them here. So I'm looking forward to see what this season brings, because, episode 1 was fantastic.
Yeah. And this was something that we were discussing when we were nerding out over the episode after watching it. We were sitting there saying how great it was and how we can't wait for the next one. And this is going to be yet another show that we're like, oh my God, is it Friday yet? So we can see the next one, because this is great. This is literally saving the Star Wars universe. Okay, so here's the thing. If you're a huge fan of all of the Disney new sequels, we're not making fun of you. We're not saying that, your thoughts are invalid. If you enjoy them, that's fine. Myself personally, and I think, my fellow nerds here will agree, we didn't really care for all of them. There was a lot of, slip-ups with the story where it didn't seem like they were really advancing the characters. They don't do that in The Mandalorian. We see Din growing as a character in every one of these episodes. We see him growing closer with people. We saw him in the first season alone, starting off hating all droids and then growing to accept a droid as a friend and even getting emotional over one, dying.
And I also like how, like, this episode in particular perfectly illustrates what you're saying. When you think about it, this was an hour-long episode. This is 54 minutes. What did they do on this show? They went and killed a krayt dragon. They took the entire show to tell that story. That way you're going to get some depth on each of the characters. You wouldn't think that there would be depth to a sand person. You'd think they would just be like, the heathens of Tatooine, and that was it. No.
Dave, that's our word. You can't use that.
And it's when you add depth to characters like that, and the village people, that's funny, that they were being attacked at the town they were in. And when they first came to town, that one guy almost started a fight, but the peacekeeper Cobb comes in and they all work together. And by the end of it, whether they hated each other or not, they all celebrated together.
In the whole way they handle this episode, it starts out, Din is, hey, I'm looking for fellow Mandalorians, so hopefully I can find the wee baby Yodas or the child. Please don't yell at me if you call it the child. I know it is. You don't get in our comments. But he goes looking for fellow Mandalorians. He has a lead. And most shows, that lead's going to lead perfectly. It's going to bow everything out. Instead, it leads him to someone who's just wearing Mandalorian armor. And he ends up, fighting a krayt dragon just to get it back because it's part of his creed. I mean, they really do a good job of, hey, we know how life goes. You start something and you think it's going to go one way and it branches off in 100 different directions. And they're doing this with every episode. Every episode is kind of its almost self-contained story. And they handle it so well because it's not only just one good story, but it's also leading down the line. And it's going to set up a bunch of different things. And like Doug said, episode, appointment episodes here, appointment viewing, because I can't wait for next Friday. I'm going to get up early before work and make sure I catch it before, hopefully anyone else does, because I don't want any spoilers.
So a little bit more on the armor in particular that Din was going after. So this kind of ties into what we were talking about, where they're sort of, I guess I don't want to say reinventing canon, but they are definitely establishing it a little bit further than where it was previously. So one of the things that George Lucas said back in the days of the prequels, hold on. I don't think that Boba Fett and Jango Fett's armor is true Beskar. It's not Mandalorian. It's made out of a thinner steel. And I'm pretty sure that was an actual quote from George Lucas. You can probably Google it or whatever. But yeah, no, he basically said that he was really doubling down on, at that point, he was saying that Jango Fett and Boba Fett were definitely not Mandalorians. And also their armor was not true Mandalorian armor, and it was made out of a cheaper steel. But in this episode, the sheriff, or I'm sorry, what is he called again?
The Marshal.
Thank you. Yeah, the Marshal. So the Marshal actually says that, this has protected him. He loves this armor. It's keeping him safe. It's keeping the town safe. So that leads me to believe that they're kind of disregarding what George actually said about the armor. And I think that this might actually be true Beskar Mandalorian armor. And I think maybe Din recognizes that. I think he would be able to tell the difference between true Mandalorian armor and not, even if it just looked like it,
And now that he has the armor, and we know the wee baby Yoda, the child, is a part of his clan, are we going to see the wee baby Yoda wearing Boba Fett's armor? I'm just kidding. Please don't do that. That would be terrible. But it's a thought. And if it happens, you heard it here first.
That is now canon, Keith. That is going to happen. Wee baby Yoda himself is going to be wearing Boba's helmet with his little ears sticking out of the sides. It's going to be amazing.
And of course, speaking of the end scene, where Boba Fett's there, Sarlacc theory of him getting pooped out of the side of the planet might be wrong. Well, just from one of the lines in the show where Mando actually says, Cobb says to him, there's no such thing as abandoned Sarlacc pit. And Mando says, there is if you eat the Sarlacc. So I'm thinking maybe the Sarlacc, it was eaten a krayt dragon, and during the confusion, Mando got out somehow. His best guard had saved him to that point. He crawled out, and the Jawas found him and stole his theory. Really took it one step further, saying that the same people found him and brought him back to health. But is Vanth, when he says, "Tell your people that I didn't do that to the suit," does he mean something that was done in the Sarlacc or the Jawas, or could it have been something, it wasn't the suit wasn't in the best condition when Boba Fett wore it in the first place? But what do you guys think?
Are you trying to tell me that you're going to completely no? Dave, obviously, Boba Fett is such a badass that he ate the Sarlacc pit from the inside out, and then it pooped him out the other end of the planet in a fit of rage. That's canon. You heard it here first.
It's canon, folks. Just mark it down. Dave Filoni, Favreau, we know you're watching. Boba Fett pooped out the other side, but Doug, he ate the Sarlacc, not the Sarlacc pit, because then the pit's really nothing. It's just where the Sarlacc runs around. But to what Dave said about when Cobb Vanth told Mando, "Hey, just tell your people that I wasn't the one who broke it or damaged it." I think he didn't want the Mandos coming after him. Like, "Oh, he messed up our armor? Let's go get him, boys."
This is a breakdown and review, so I'm going to give you guys my rating right now. What do you think of that? I think I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. This couldn't have been much better, but I don't want to rate it a 10 because then it's such a high bar for the rest of the season. I want to be able to, there might be better shows this season, who knows, but it's going to be hard to top.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. I'm also going to give it a 9 out of 10. A couple of things that I wanted to point out that we forgot to mention. First off, another reference to Boba Fett, which I think kind of ties into the fact that, yeah, that probably is Boba Fett at the end. Who knows? Maybe it'll be Captain Rex and they'll totally fool us all, but it's probably Boba Fett. The fact that Din bashes the jetpack that the Marshal was wearing and makes him fly off the same way that blind Han Solo did to Boba Fett, and where he was like such a terrible ending for him, until he badassed his way out of the Sarlacc by eating his way out and then getting pooped out the other end. But anyway, no, totally 9 out of 10. Amazing music, like always. That I always talk about how great the sound effects and the music fit in with each one of these episodes. It's so great. I absolutely loved the Western feel, the spaghetti Western feel to this. I loved the fact that they met in a saloon. I love the fact that there was a spittoon. There's a spittoon in a space saloon that little baby Yoda crawls inside. And I'm not calling him the child. I don't care what you say, Keith. But yeah, no, I thought that it was great. Good episode. Again, I'm going to agree with Dave. I don't want to rate it a 10 out of 10 just because this is such a good series. It's probably going to get even better, but this was an amazing opener. And I love the way that they're willing to play with the episode times in order to tell the story that they need to tell. Some of the episodes might be 30 minutes. Some of them might be 50 minutes. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see, but I can't wait for the next one.
Yeah, I got to agree with Doug and Dave on this. I mean, a wonderful opening episode to this new series. Chapter 9 was everything we needed and wanted it to be. I mean, the callbacks to characters like Amy Sedaris's character. We saw Gor Koresh, who was so huge in the trailers and everything. And he lasted 5 minutes on the show. So well done. That was great. I thought that was great. And all of the fan service we got between Anakin's pod being Cobb Vanth's, speeder bike, and we got Boba Fett's armor, and we got possibly Boba Fett at the end. And it wasn't just them throwing him in there. They wrote a great story to bring it all together. And I think they're going to carry it out through this season. And I think, Mando's going to get a little sidetracked from looking for other Mandalorians to find, wee baby Yoda, the child's people and home and everything, because so much is going on. I mean, Boba Fett's probably coming after him at this point. But basically, it was what we want out of Star Wars, and it was fantastic. And I'm going to give it a 9.2 out of 10.
So that's what we thought of this episode. What did you guys think? Please leave us some comments in the bottom, and we'll see you next time on Not Your Status Quo.